All right, everyone, another little bit about Tommy Robinson, because apparently he was going to the bar with some of his buddies, and the Antifa was there, like some members, and they were like, shouting at him and stuff, trying to intimidate him. Now, according to this very story, link in the description, archived of course, it's very funny because depending on which part of the article you focus on, it's making the case that either Tommy Robinson and his friends were they're like cowards and got chased off by Antifa, haha, it's funny, bye-bye Nazi, or he was being antagonistic and confrontational and he's obviously a violent, despicable bigot. Well, which one is it? Again, anytime we see this sort of contradiction, especially when it's within the context of the same fucking article anyway, it is propaganda. What I would say is it's very funny. The UK, supposedly so enlightened and first world civilized, freedom and wonderful things, wealth and happiness for all, big fucking joke, supposedly this wonderful place to be. Isn't it interesting that in such a society, especially when it's right now condemning Saudi Arabia for potentially killing a journalist, isn't it funny that a person who literally has to work now for a Canadian company because he's been blacklisted everywhere in his own home country can be defamed and constantly attacked and paraded forth as a pariah by his own government and by his own government-licensed and in some cases taxpayer-funded media within his own country to the point where it's impossible for him to get a job. He can't go to the bar without being harassed by communists, and when that happens, the corporate media complex and the state applaud the communists. Isn't it interesting that someone who has ostensibly, he's never killed anybody, he's done, as far as I can tell, nothing particularly wrong. I mean, they're constantly talking about how violent he is. He keeps getting assaulted by other people, and then something's wrong when he fights back. He founds the EDL, distances himself from the movement entirely years ago, becomes basically a mainline tradcon journalist, and it's still acceptable for him to be defamed constantly. It's very funny, and we see this happening elsewhere, too. You think of the constant waves of defamation towards YouTubers or towards 4chan. Like, look at Right Wing Watch's yesterday's write-up on the NPC meme, and it's like, okay, Holt, the one thing that Holt gets right in his basically hit piece against memes and 4chan was something I pointed out over a month ago. I can't remember the video link, dig for it, where I pointed out the NPC meme may have been non-organically spawned specifically to dehumanize people on behalf of authoritarianism. He's construing it as though it's like the far right is trying to tar and feather social justice wars. He doesn't even know where the meme came from. He's like taking some normie approach to his research. It's very, very funny indeed. It's very interesting that a bunch of for-profit corporations, and in other cases, in the UK's case especially, government-sponsored, taxpayer-funded edifices, can defame a citizen within that same country who is not currently in prison, who is not at this time charged with any crime, and who is simply trying to conduct journalism. Journalism that they themselves are unwilling and in some cases unable to conduct. Because they're not willing to risk it. Some BBC pundit, they're not going to go down and record in front of the trial so that people get pertinent information. No, they clammed up completely. They shut up completely when the judge issued that gag order on the Tommy Robinson proceedings. So people outside the UK had to report on UK news twice as much to make up for lost time. This is exactly why they're trying to globalize the internet. They want UK-style dystopian censorship. Corporations 10 years ago would have loved the kind of censorship that they have now. You're not allowed to push social issues. You're not allowed to talk about some scandal. You're not allowed to talk badly about some person has $1 billion fucking dollars. Yeah, is shielded from even being criticized under like some of the bullying TOS now. Oh my God, you're bullying George Soros. Fuck you. Oh, you're bullying Chelsea Clinton. One of the, I posted this yesterday. One of the Facebook pages that was purged in the last round of politically motivated purges was called, I think it was, Chelsea Clinton is Donkey from Shrek. It was a small group with only a few thousand people on it. I think fewer people than follow my Facebook page. But I mean, come on, that's like the greatest title ever, and you're kicking them off. If a group only has a few thousand people, then why do you care if they take out ads or something? It's like wrongfully using ads or misleading hashtags or something they get kicked off for. Come on, that's a bunch of bullshit. Notice there's not one neoliberal page among them because they're so cut and dry, above board, and lawful. They never manipulate search results to their own benefit. No, they don't need to because fucking the so-called fact checkers will do it for them. Snopes will fact-check everything they write and declare it all true anyway, so they get a little extra airplay. The SPLC won't complain about their pages, because they're good little slaves. Tommy Robinson gets harassed by a group that is considered in some countries to be a literal terrorist organization. Oh my God, evil Tommy Robinson. You look at the write-up, it's like far-right, Islamophobe, By the way, we're going to mention the EDL because, you know, reasons. By the way, here's his real name. We're gonna constantly remind you what his real name is because we want you to know he's not really Tommy Robinson. By the way, is he related to like Annie Lennox? I think, or is it Lennon or Lennox in his name? Maybe it's John. It'd be very funny if he was related to John Lennon, even a very distant relative. He looks more like Morrissey, in all honesty, a little bit. By the way, someone mentioned more and more in the UK, with more and more reprehension and vileness, again, by the British media. It's like, oh, well, he was, you know, former Smiths frontman. He's ranting and going crazy. He's obviously losing it, and it's like, okay, you're not allowed to have certain opinions because then you're a mad person. This is a traditional sort of British thing, labeling anyone who has the wrong opinions as mad. The Soviet Union used to do that. They had a diagnosis called slow schizophrenia that they would diagnose people with dissidents. So basically, it would keep them from voting, keep them from certain political discourse. They couldn't own, you know, any weapons, certainly. And they could be subjected to random searches, maybe temporary imprisonment, throw them in a nut ward and put them on a ventilator or something. They would do this constantly to dissidents, critics of the Stalinist regime and Khrushchev and the others. The diagnosis was bullshit, but the communists loved to throw it around. Of course, now we recognize most of those people were perfectly sane. It's just that they had the wrong opinions. How wonderful it is. By the way, it's funny. Here's a really good argument for monarchism. And by the way, it's minarchism, M-I-N. Some people think I'm saying monarchism. I oppose monarchy. The idea of royal families is delusional. Here's a good idea for limited government and having sort of a constitutional freedom appreciation within your culture. The government is the only group that can legalize itself in its own abuse of you. A foreign state initiating force is opposed by a military. It can't legalize what it's doing unless it, you know, conquests you. Another person can't legalize their victimization of you, but the state can. The state can also legalize third parties victimizing you. Like the state can say, hey, it's okay for the corporate media to defame a bunch of YouTubers. Yeah, it's okay if the taxpayer-funded BBC literally defames Tommy Robinson. It's fine. Yeah, it's all right. And they get to misapply the rules too. Like laws, basically rules for thee, not for me situation appears to be very much in play. I pointed it out. The auspices, that soldier that was booted out of the UK's armed forces and the other 27 that got reprimanded for taking a Tommy Robinson picture. It's not so much, it's not like the law just magically came into existence because it was Tommy Robinson. It's, you know, an older regulation. Can I find any other example of anyone being punished, though, with it? No, I can't. Even though I'm pretty sure other soldiers have taken selfies with a politician or something like that. I mean, come on, or weighed in on a political issue, either anonymously or under their real name. I'm sure that they have, but they're not going to get punished for it. But if it's Tommy Robinson, they will. They get thrown in a re-education camp in the most literal sense. And look, your GI is for fucking the UK, for the Crown, so you can't say anything. You're already there. I wouldn't be surprised if Robinson's prediction comes true and fewer people end up joining the UK's armed forces. When your military is geared towards spreading tolerance and multicultural awareness and following a bunch of legalese bureaucratic bullshit instead of actually being a military, what does that say about your country? You've got your priorities out of whack. It would be wonderful if fucking the royal family were to dissolve your parliament and plunge you back into a literal monarchism. It would probably be more effective than the situation you have today with the lib-lab-con sort of parties there. Look at how abusive your state really is, and you're calling yourself part of the free Western world. I'm sorry, but the UK is absolutely dystopian. Orwell is literally spinning around in his grave. He would fear for the future of your people, essentially. That's about all. Peace out.